This is All Things Caregiving from Breathing Spaces.
Hi, my name is Cindy Mariner. I'm the founder of Breathing Spaces. Welcome to another episode of All Things Caregiving. I'm very excited to be here today with my co-host, Cindy Gum, and also team member of Breathing Spaces. Hi, Cindy. And we are thrilled to have today as our guest, Michael Lewis. Michael and I actually met through the LinkedIn platform and have had the opportunity to speak. And Michael is providing a tremendous service. His company is Family Legacy Financial Solutions. Michael, welcome to the show
Thank you for
today.
having me. I
Yeah,
appreciate the opportunity.
absolutely. Absolutely. Michael, it is, I know personally, family caregiving is loaded. You've got emotions, you've got exhaustion, you've got health issues. And one of the issues that is often not addressed is the financial end until you're right into the throes of it. So your expertise, I think, is absolutely invaluable to this audience. So please, why can you share with us in this audience? Why is this so important as a family caregiver?
I think the fundamental reason is that the industry at large has always looked at uh, finances as a self-serving entity, i.e., collect the assets, maintain the assets, and family problems, we deal with them as they come. It explains why most of the literature that talks about the baby boomers, they always address it as the great wealth transfer, whereas I look at things completely different. To me, the baby boomers represent the most amount of money that's going to be spended on not only healthcare services, but caregiving services. And that is not an individual problem, that is a family problem. As a result, uh, family members are intertwined with finances and emotions, and it requires a holistic view of the dynamics that people are going through, the financial consequences that families face, and a rational, dispassionate way of making decisions in order to provide the level of care and dignity that your family members all deserve.
Mm, very good point. Very good point. And Cindy, you actually brought up a question a little bit earlier for Michael. Would you mind repeating that again?
Well, I'm just thinking about all of the people that are dealing with a spouse or family member with cognitive issues. Let's talk about emotions, that get complicated.
Yeah.
And how do you help someone steer the ship, so to speak, through what the resources available are? Or maybe what I'm curious about more than anything is what is like your most what is it that when people come to you, is there one thing in particular or a few that, just seems to always be the problem? The elephant in the middle of the room for families dealing with it might not be cognitive decline, but it could be a debilitating situation that's going to get worse before it gets a lot worse. So I'm wondering for these people, when they come to you, how you manage helping them and what their most pressing issues generally are. That may be too much to take on. So you take your pick.
Now they're intertwined, right?
Okay.
So part of why we do things like these podcasts is we want people to get in front of the problem, which means recognize it early and
Yeah.
not wait until it becomes a crisis. I can share with you countless stories of people who recognized something was wrong, but they couldn't put their finger on it. And years go by, and the condition gets worse, and now all of a sudden they finally get a diagnosis of Alzheimer's or dementia.
Yeah.
Whereas if they had just taken, I don't want to say taken the time, but trusted their heart, trusted their gut that something is not right, and started to do their research and have communications about it, they could have proactively addressed the solution. That's paramount of importance because if you
Mhm.
come to me in crisis, it's crisis of finance, right? I'm worried that I don't have enough money to address the problem and provide the care correctly, it becomes a crisis of family, which is typically one family member takes on the responsibility of caregiving, and the other family members, while they all typically care for, the other family members, are either not
Mhm.
comfortable providing the service that a caregiver provides, but there are other ways to support the primary caregiver, right? The caregiver's giving out, not giving out, I'm sorry, paying out of pocket expenses that maybe they're not aware of. There are tax consequences, so they need the proper guidance. But the number one issue that I see is having the conversation and getting the family to pull together versus being torn apart.
Wow. So don't wait for a crisis, is what
Right.
I'm hearing.
That's correct. We make our
Yeah,
worst decisions when we're in crisis,
absolutely.
and our options are limited when we're in crisis.
Mhm. So Michael, take us through the steps. I come to you. My mom is ill. She's going through several different stages of illness. I have a brother, I have a sister, and I come to you and say, I need some help. What would you give as a roadmap to me on what steps I can start taking? I
Oh,
realize
that's a one.
everyone's going to be individual, but
Right. But that's a wonderful question. I think people fail to understand that it is a journey, not just a point in time situation that needs to be addressed. So the first thing I would do is assess where you are in your journey, right? Are you just now recognizing the problem? Have you been dealing with the problem for several years and now realize that you're overwhelmed? So getting a sense of where you are is vitally important. The next thing I would do is do a checklist of what have you already prepared? Is a will in place? Are powers of attorney in place? Do the people who have these authorities understand the wishes of the person you're taking care of? It's vitally important that we all recognize that what we're trying to do here is provide dignity and respect in the closing chapters of somebody's life. And how can you do that if you don't understand what they want? And most people just assume that, oh, I know what they want. And quite honestly, if you've never had the conversation, you don't know. And then you have the issue of what do I need to do next, right? And there, there are all sorts of resources available. There's all sorts of people that you can rely on. There are steps that you can take. Clearly, getting a handle on your finances is vitally important. And notice that I'm using the word vitally a lot, and I should come up with a synonym for it. But you want to be in a position where once you know what the journey ahead looks like, what's the caregiving requirements are going to be, right? Are you just ramping up on your expenses or are you winding down from the expenses? Where are you in that journey? And getting the family on board so that we all have the conversation. That to me is where I think families break down. The other area that I always caution caregivers about is making sure you provide enough time for yourself. It is a overwhelming task where you can neglect yourself, your physical abilities are compromised because you're emotionally drained. That also can impact your own cognitive abilities and your abilities to execute the duties that you've agreed to take on amongst, for yourself. And the last thing I'll mention is that finances are almost always at the heart of all family contentions when it comes to taking care. You never see people argue over what to do. It's really who's to pay for it. And there is a document that is called the Family Caregivers Agreement, and it outlines not only each person's responsibility, but also what kind of compensation is going to be in place, understanding what the backup plans are for the primary caregiver, because, statistics show that if you're over 60 and you're doing a caregiving responsibility, that there's a good chance that you will pass away before the person who you're caregiving passes away, which means you've got to have conversations about what is your backup plan. So I hope that answers your question. each situation is different, and so it requires a real deep understanding of the family dynamics, the nature of the disease, because all diseases are different. We all just lump dementia in as an example, but there are lots of other elder care that may end with dementia but start with something else. And it's important to make sure that your team is well educated and communicating, right? Not just you with your parents, but you with your siblings, you with the medical team, you with the financial team, to make sure everybody's pulling the same way.
Mhm.
So, do you get families together on Zoom? For instance, I didn't know about this family caregiver agreement. I think it's, as a therapist, I'm going, what a fabulous idea. Absolutely. But they also might need some guidance with that. Do you provide that?
So, what I have found, and the short answer is yes, I do. Um, what I have found is families are more interested now in getting the best care they can find versus the most convenient care. And if you think about
Yeah,
how
what does that
decisions have
mean?
been made in the past, right? uh, Basically, we defer to the family member that's closest. And sure, for logistical reasons, if I'm in New York and the person I'm caring for is in California, I have two options. One is I can fly back and forth. That's a tremendous amount of expense. Or
Mhm.
two, I have to find somebody that I trust, boots on the ground, in order to handle those that require proximity. But there's a lot of care and coordination that can be handled remotely. COVID, for all the devastation it has caused, it has woken people to the possibility and acceptance of working remotely with professionals. In my
Yeah.
industry, it used to be I need to be able to walk across the street and meet the person. Now it's I accept the the advice coming to me via Zoom, as long as the person that I'm talking with is credible, comfortable, and I can establish rapport. So people are more open to working remotely. And if you think about it, uh, even families, right? You have a wedding. What do people do now? They stream the wedding online for someone who can't attend. We're all using technology to advance ourselves, and there's no reason that technology cannot be used to advance the caregiving experience and support.
So you can gather people together on Zoom that are family members scattered around and create a plan. Do you find that caregiving costs are different in different parts? Because I'm thinking about how expensive it is here for us to hire a caregiver or use an agency, say, versus trying to find someone on our own. All those kinds of issues people struggle with. Are you able to help people in Kansas or Florida or California or New York?
So obviously, I have some limitations in terms of knowing the local communities and areas,
Yeah, how do
every
you
area
work
of the
with,
country.
yeah.
I do know what cost ranges are, but more
Hmm.
importantly is I have developed a network of professionals of which I consider both of you a part of, who have expertise in their local areas. I
Hmm.
also have the outreach and capabilities of doing not only the research for areas that I may not be as conversant on, but also can connect people. I think one of the responsibilities of people in my industry, which is often overlooked, is what we do is provide care and support, which means we have to open up our books, our personal books, and connect people with other people. We can't be everything to everybody. It doesn't work. We'll either overstep our bounds, like I would never trust myself to draft legal documents. I'm not a lawyer. However, I can talk about legal strategies in terms of what legal entities you need and how to best fund them, as an example. I can moderate certain conversations, but sometimes if the dynamics are such that a professional is required, well, again, I have people in my network. So the ability to share the network and have a robust network that people can make themselves available to, I think, is an obligation of all
Yeah,
financial advisors. And
yeah.
again, sometimes I'm a little disheartened to hear how my thinking is not necessarily pervasive through the entire industry.
Well, it's needed. And
It
there's a
is.
huge need out there.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Michael, when you have these conversations with a family, is the person at the center of it all getting the care? Are they ever involved in these conversations that you have?
As long as they're able to be part of the conversation, yes, it's highly encouraged, right? We're making decisions about that person,
Right,
right?
right.
And people assume a lot about the elderly. They assume that they're no longer able to comprehend complex topics. Well, if it's really that complex, we ought to be, and we know what we're talking about, we ought to be able to simplify it so they at least understand. They may not be able to participate in the decision-making process, but if we're making decisions about what would you like if this happens, and they're able to answer those questions, well, they should be. Oftentimes we're talking about compensating other family members. That's certainly should be part of the conversation, especially if that parent is basically the benefactor who's paying for all this. There are times where family members may be excluded. If it's becoming emotionally too much for them, then it may make sense to bring the family together, and then after some agreements are made, bring the person who you're caring for in and explain to them what was decided, and you can get their feedback. It's an ongoing process, right? Unlike a business where everybody's charged with, okay, let's make a decision right now and go execute. This is a very fluid situation. So I can't think of too many reasons other than either incompetence, that they're no longer able to comprehend and legally understand what's going on, or it becomes so emotionally draining to them that they don't want to be burdened with the details, that you wouldn't want them to be a part of it. So yes, I certainly encourage it.
Yeah, I'm so glad to hear you say that because I think too often, as people become in the caregiving roles, that they don't include the loved ones in the middle of the conversation. So I'd love to hear from your side that that's encouraged. That's really wonderful, truly. Yeah. We will put up your website for people to be able to contact you. If someone wanted to reach out, what would they want to kind of get their head wrapped around a little bit before they reached out? Do you have a wish list for people to have before they contact you directly?
The primary wish should be, one is I really want to help this person and I want to protect myself, and two, I'm open to being coached, right? Oftentimes, and you hinted upon it, right? Why would you leave somebody out who's capable of doing it? Well, because you've misinterpreted the role of caregiver to be parent. You're not a parent. You're not in charge. You're facilitating conversations, you're facilitating and providing services, but that doesn't make you the master of caregiving and the controller, right? Some people do view it as a controlling process. If you're open to the help and you see a real need and desire, that's all I ask, right? There's no checklist to say, oh, you're not wealthy enough to work with me, or you're not advanced enough to work with me. If you have a need, and this is again how I like to think I distinguish myself from others, this is about providing a service. This is about taking care of somebody. And yes, there are financial implications and we need to be coordinated, but that shouldn't be the primary driver. What really needs to be the driver is I need help and I don't know where to turn.
Yeah.
I may not be the right person, and if I'm not, I'll tell you who I can recommend to you, and you'll get that kind of help. But no one should be turned away. Full stop.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. This has been this has been such a much needed conversation, Michael. Our paths ran across each other for a reason, and I am eternally grateful that they did.
As am
Cindy,
I.
yeah, thank you so much. Cindy, do you have any closing questions before
Well,
we wrap up?
I'm just really appreciating that there are people like you in the caregiving community because there's a need. And I'm hearing that whether or not someone has a financial advisor, it's whether or not they've got a need for some support, and you can help them even determine how best to meet what those needs are, but they've got to reach out first. They've got to take that initiative to start caring enough about themselves and their situation to reach out and get the help and support. And I know that's a hard move for many. So I'm so glad you're out there.
Yeah,
No,
absolutely.
thank you. And I appreciate the work you're all doing. I think it is in the community's best interest that we see ourselves as strategic partners trying to solve a problem and not competing
Yeah.
for somebody's assets. No one wins that way.
Yes, by
Yeah.
all means. And
Such
one
a-
of my favorite taglines is "Don't do this alone." So thank you, Michael, for being part of this today. We are so very grateful to you.
My pleasure. And again, thank you for having me. And I hope your audience realizes that there is help out there for them. All they need to do, like you just said, Cindy, all you need to do is ask.
Yes, absolutely. Beautifully said. Thank you, Michael, so
Great.
much. And
Thanks,
Cindy,
Michael.
as always, thank you for being with us today.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Cindy.
This has been All Things Caregiving from Breathing Spaces.